Hey, welcome to my channel. um, so the fact that the Mets were able to essentially land, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly or not, but Matone is pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. The fact that the Mets didn't have to. Oh, it seems like they don't have to give up any prospects, and the fact that it helps them in their relief aspect of things because it's an overloaded. I mean, the Rays don't seem to need him at this point. And the fact that Matone was with the Houston Astros a year ago, where it was overloaded with pretty much the bullpen, their bullpen, that he wasn't used as much. So it would be interesting to see how this works out in the long term. But the fact is, the Mets, it seems like they didn't have to give up any prospects. It was more just cash more than anything else, which I'm happy for, actually, quite honestly. It's more the fact that it's cash. If that's the way the Mets can get some of these bullpen relief, maybe a starter here or there through cash, I'm down for that as well, too, quite honestly, because more so to the point where, like, if they don't, the whole purpose is for the Mets to build their farm system. And the fact that they didn't lose anyone in this aspect works really well from that perspective. Now, the real question comes down to is how well will Matone or Maton, if that's how you pronounce it, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce his name, how well he'll fit into the Mets clubhouse, but also the aspect of like where he comes into play into like how he's going to be used and such. Because if this is a case where this might help Diaz in the long term, great. But reality is again, I don't have. I mean, I'm not denying that the Mets have a shot for the wild card and making it into the wild card playoffs, but my feeling and gut is basically on the Mets, this current Mets team right now, unless there's some massive change. This is not a team that's going to go deep into the playoffs. They're not going to win the pennant. Let's be honest. This is a team that's not. This team right now with the current composure makeup is not going to win the pennant, unless they have a true number one starter. They're not winning any. They're not winning. Getting probably maybe past the first stage of the wild card, but getting it past the second round, it's not happening. I mean, it'd be interesting. I'd love to see them do that. I'd love for them to replicate what the Diamondbacks did last year, as well as what the Phillies did 2 years ago. But I highly doubt that's happening. I mean, if it is, that'd be great, but I really doubt it. I mean, it's more so the Mets have to find some other players here and there. I mean, it'd be great if the Mets can pick up some players from from their farm system and bring them up, promote them. Like Scott doesn't seem to be doing so well. I hate to say this, but maybe David Pearson, instead of pushing him towards, as well as Miguel, putting him as starters, using him as relievers. Look at it this way. Look at Seth Lugo and Aaron Hallman. When they were coming in, they were pretty much They were much middle relievers, and they were doing so well to the point where, like, when the Mets pitching started getting injured, they shifted them to the starting rotations, and we started seeing how good they were. Now, Seth Lugo, I'll be honest. I didn't foresee him doing this well with Kansas City. I thought maybe he was going to be a few wins here and there, like he's a back of the rotation type of guy. But the fact that he's 11-3 with second best ERA in the AL is pretty impressive in and of itself, and I'm happy for him. Could the Mets have signed him? I highly doubt it because again, the Mets from their perspective, they thought Seth Lugo was more of a middle reliever guy. Thing is Seth Lugo always believes he's a starter. We'll see what happens because, like, in reality, is last year he didn't just do so well with the Padres. It just happens to be with the Kansas City Chiefs. He's doing decent enough. The real question is like, what happens next year? Will he replicate this next year? I highly doubt it because we've seen what he can do, or seen what happens when he goes 2 years in a row as a starter. But outside of that, I mean, yeah, it would be great if the Mets could find some more within their farm system that were highly unlikely or are highly unlikely to what they think of as being starters, but turn out to be pretty decent actually. Like I said, Seth Lugo, no one saw him coming up like that, and doing decent enough. Same thing with Harmon. So I mean, honestly, Scott and Peterson as well as McGill, they're all touted as being like, hey, they might do so well. Budo, I haven't seen him entirely, so it's been interesting to see how that works out. But with those three right now, Scott might be maybe I don't know, but the fact that he was, you know, essentially taken. not taken, but more so to the point of, like, they wailed on him basically, and like, pretty much he was out after the third inning against the Pirates. It'll be interesting to see how he bounces back from that. Like I said, I hate to say it, with David Peterson as well as McGill, I mean Tom McGill, that they've got to, instead of making them as your starters, I think you put them as mid relievers, because, like, let's be honest, for the first 3 innings, they are really good. When they're in for 3 innings, they're really good. But after that, they have to work themselves into it. And Scott can last a little bit longer. McGill, after like 5 innings, he's pretty much done. He always gives up runs left and right. And like, it seems like he's suited for the mid reliever role than an actual starter. So I'm hoping that, the Mets see that as well too, and hopefully they'll see whatever happens. It's sad to see that Lucchesi was, DFA'd, but unfortunately, there's not much you can do about it. Um, it'd be interesting to see what happens with, if the Mets can actually trade Severino and Alonso. I mean, honestly, I think those are the two bigger trading chips that the Mets have, specifically Alonso and Severino. They probably can get a decent return back from him. Hopefully, they can get a decent return from Quintana as well too. But only time will tell. Let's see. Let's see how this works out. Of course, the Mets won yesterday against the what's their names? Against the Nats. But if you saw, the Nats pretty much almost came back. They could have came back, and it's showing that the Mets relief pitching has issues. I mean, quite honestly, the fact that the Nationals were able to score 5 runs in the last 2 innings, it's showing that the Mets bullpen is definitely got issues, and they have to work on that bullpen, and they have to improve upon that bullpen. Hopefully, Maton can actually do good and help them out short term wise. It'll be interesting to see if, maybe Stearns finds another reliever somewhere out there without surrendering any picks, but maybe more so, or prospects, but more so getting him for cash or something like that. Only time will tell. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think Matone was a good pick? Do you think the Mets should be sellers? Do you think they should be buyers? Do you think the Mets can make a deep run into the playoffs if they were to make the wild card, depending on how things go? It'll be interesting to see from that aspect. With that, I'll leave it at that. If you like my channel, like my videos, like my content, please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. But with that, I'll leave it at that. Unfiltered, unedited, and of course, always unrehearsed. Until next time.